In front of you, you have a yellow, a blue, and a white set of papers. If you would grab the white one first, and you'll see there's two content objectives of the workshop today. Number one is drawing conclusions about the effect that common formative assessments have on student learning. And number two, I can design formative assessments that measure student learning. So those are our two things. Please take that white sheet. It should have a box in the top right-hand corner. And it says, rate your understanding of these two content objectives right now, before we've even started. I want you to just think, boy, what do you already know about these two things? And a 1, looking at the white top right corner for those of you who just came in. A 1 is, I know nothing about this, and a 4 is, I could teach this session, Bruce, take a break. Anybody a 4, by the way? And then, if you would, go ahead and answer questions 1 through 6 on the front. And we're going to make this quick. I'm going to give you 45 seconds. 45 seconds. Just go quickly. Anybody feel like they knew all the answers? Anyone? Okay. Well, here's the good news. In 45 minutes, you'll have all the answers on all these. If you flip it over and look at the back, you see it's very, very similar. So as we go through the session today, if you recognize those answers, feel free to jot them in. All right? So you can pass the quiz at the end. You'll all turn these in. You don't have to put your name on it, though. All right. Okay, we're going to start by building some common knowledge. When you're working in a PLC, by the way, building common knowledge is a big part of your PLC. So I've been working with the second grade PLC here a little bit, and we take time from time to time to just read an article for 5 minutes. And we just do a quick read. Everybody just starts at a different spot. We read, and then we share.
Change to the top please go to 136. Change to the top 136.
And that's going to be your blue packet. So we're going to dive right in. And as any good teacher would do, the kids need to be working harder than you. So my intent is to make you work harder than me today. So I want you to read for about, let's go with 3 minutes or so. You can jump anywhere you want. If you're a random person, just pick a page. If you're linear, start at the top and move down. I've given you a hint where it says start here. That's what I would do if I were you. And I've also highlighted some things I really wanted to point out as key. So 3 minutes, and then we'll pause. Okay? Any questions? Anybody find any answers? Anybody find answers to their sheet? Oh, Andrea found one. Yeah. Look back at that white sheet. You might have found a couple answers. Let's do this. Let's do think, pair, share at your tables. We'll have to go into 2s and 3s. Most tables have 5. There's one with 6. So double up or triple and have a quick conversation about what was new. What did you learn about formative assessment that you didn't know 10 minutes ago? Okay? And then we're going to share out some of those thoughts as a whole group. I'm going to ask for people to share, and I'm going to repeat what you say for camera purposes, unless you don't mind grabbing the mic. That'd be fine too. So, any groups? We'll just do this randomly. What do you know now you didn't know 13 minutes ago? So, really, it's, to me, if I can put a metaphor or something into what you're talking about, it's a guy driving or a gal driving with a navigator, a GPS system. Because, sometimes guys will just go, like, I'm going to go here and see, but gals might have, this is my wife, maybe I'm stereotyping this, she wants to know, here's my map, here's where I'm going, step by step by step. And that navigator is, as soon as you take a wrong turn, it's going, oh, wait a minute, think about this, you might want to redirect. So does that metaphor kind of match what you're talking about? So, yeah. When we have a plan, and we just push the plan forward and don't think about kids learning, we're not using formative assessment. You see that word form? I like to think of it as inform. Formative assessment informs our instruction. Okay, what else? Anyone? Okay, so getting the kids involved ramps up that rigor. I think in the blurb that I wrote, formative instruction, when implemented well, can increase learning by up to 30-some%. That was by Marzano's research. And I think that's what Megan was just talking about. When it's implemented well, the kids are involved. They're thinking about it. They're doing some of that work. It's going to look different from kindergarten through 5th grade. And I've got a few examples, and we'll get there shortly, of some different grade level work, and try and get kids involved. And I've got some ideas that you might take back and use or modify some more. Thank you. Other ideas? So, Kathy had said that on the formative assessment is like a visit to the chiropractor because it can straighten you out and get you back on path. Yeah. Anybody else want to share their simile? As long as we're there. Beforehand, what did you think formative assessment was like? Anyone?
I said doctor because you're determining what the student needs to know and what he knows.
Yeah, and that's what I had too. It's like going to the doctor because you go for a checkup and then you can do something about it, right? The doctor will say, hey, you know what? You are sick. Take this, do this, try this. Or this is what's wrong, try this and do this. And now we're jumping into another piece. What is it that the doctor's giving to us?
It's kind of like a trip to the dentist, and they're looking for holes or cavities in their learning, so that we can fill their need.
Nice. A trip to the dentist looking at the cavities or the holes. Yes. So great answers. Love them. Now, here's the other side of that. Summative assessment. Okay, you ready for this? Summative assessment is like an autopsy. It's over, Johnny. It's over. You're doing the autopsy. You're saying, we're done. I'm not going to go back and do anything about this now. That's summative assessment. Formative is, we can still do something like this. So, now, to even throw a wrinkle in there, depending on who you are and what your style is, a summative could be a formative if you still have time to do something about it. You know, we're creeping up on the end of the quarter, so we got to mark report cards. Once report cards are marked, that's the autopsy. It's over, it's done, we're starting over on Monday, right? So there's a big difference between formative assessment and summative assessment. Thank you for your participation. All right, let's stand up. I gave a whole bunch of you a chance to talk. I want you to go across the room and tell somebody else in the room one more thing that you haven't heard somebody say or that you've been just itching to say but didn't have the courage or opportunity to say to the whole group. Okay, so think. What's that one other thing from the blue packet? You can take it with you. And we're going to go, this is going to be a 1-minute deal. Go find somebody, and when I start counting down from 5, come on back. Go ahead. 1 minute. I want to jump back to my content objectives for the day and see how you're doing, see if you're moving at all. I can draw conclusions about the effect that common and formative assessment has on student learning. Is that changing for you? And our second one, I can design formative assessment that measures student learning. Just do a self-check on this. Are you moving a little bit on those two? Okay, I want you to keep thinking about that as we go today. Okay, now, here's another metaphor. When the chef tastes the soup, it's formative assessment. Here's my question, why? Yes, somebody said it. Because they can still adjust it. They can make it. When the customer tastes the soup, it's a summative assessment. Why? That's it. That's it. It's done. So, take a look. Now, what is formative assessment? Kind of cranking it up, moving into probably to the second part of the content objectives here. It's any assessment activity that provides information to help who and who. Yes, that was one of your questions on the pre-assessment. And Then what? Adapt, change. Yep. And then the learning is going to increase the student's knowledge or improve their understanding. This comes from William and Black. They're really two of the big researchers behind formative assessment. So you can highlight that on your yellow packet if you want to and say, hey, William and Black, if you want to know more, look those two people up. Do a search on them, you can find it. And here's that data. I said Marzano did it. Marzano did a lot like a meta-analysis of analyses. And he says that 30+ percentile points when implemented well. Now, these are the 3 questions, and this was also on your pre-assessment. 3 questions for students to ask, and for you to ask yourselves. Where am I going? And we'll break that down into 2, and we'll talk in detail about each of these. Where am I now? Okay, sound like a roadmap? Remember the GPS? We'll talk about these couple of things. And then how do I close the gap? Everybody put your right hand right in front of you, about belly level. Here's where I am now. Here's where I want to go. Now do that visual. How do I close the gap? Okay? That's what kids should think about when they're thinking about these things. If they know where they are, and they know where they're going, then they should think about, well, how am I going to close the gap? And a lot of it is by you encouraging them to work hard with the focused lessons, which I brought up right here, number 5. And again, we'll talk about each of those things. So in more detail now, where am I going? I like to look at this as a visual. It's a target. When I started today, I started with the content objectives. But what were my first 2 words in the content objective? Look at your white sheet. I can. Who's that on? Is it on me? Yeah, it's on you. It's on the learner. Right. So getting kids to say, hey, guess what? I'm not the archer here as the instructor. The kids are the archer, and they're the ones aiming at the target. So getting them to think about that, and by putting it into these I can language, Carrie Thomas is doing a session on that, where she talks about objectives. So it's on us as instructors to make it clear. Say, all right, here's where we're going. By the time we're done today, by the time we're done with the end of the week, by the time we're done with this unit, these are the things you'll be able to do. After each one of these, I want you to think about, where does this fit into our Marshall model? So flip to the back side of your blue packet now. My hope is that everyone's going to see how all of this work, this formative assessment, fits into the Marshall model and the rubric and the feedback that we're giving through our classroom observation cycles. You know, the formals, the walkthroughs, etc. So take a look. Where does this come in? There's 60 choices. Look at that choice right now. Look at your menu. Where does this one fall in? We can say A, B, C, D, E, F. Everybody see that? The big headings at the top?
C.
Under C, which one? Expectations says. Conveys to students, this is important, you can do it, and I'm not going to give up on you. Okay, anything else? Clarity. Uses clear expectations, appropriate language, and examples to present material. Anything else? Engagement. Has students actively think about, kids are now in this, right? They're the archer. Has students actively think about, discuss, and use the ideas and skills being taught. I heard somebody else say goals. Clear sense of purpose. Posting the essential questions and lesson goal. So we nailed 4 right there. By doing this and getting kids involved, you're hitting 4 of these things just under C, letter C, and there's more. There's more. We'll move on for now. Here's a sample of an I can, and I don't know how clearly it shows in your packet, but this is a math series of lessons. So think of your PLC for a minute if you were working on math, and you said, we're going to have 6 units or 6 lessons within here. And really, what is each lesson about? Let's have a conversation about that in terms of our PLC. And really decide, what is the point of lesson number 1? And this one says, I can, dot, dot, dot. And then the dot, dot, you connect the dots. This is a connect the dot activity. So I can find sums, differences, products, and quotients of whole numbers. Obviously, this is an older grade level because they're doing 4 computation things at once. Now, before the lesson would go, you show an example. You say, here's an example of what you're going to be doing, everybody, and you put it up on the board or on the projector. Can you do it right now? Here's your scale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Very similar to what I asked you to do when we started today. A 1 is, I don't understand this at all. A 4 is, you know what, I can prove to you that I know this and give me the test, because I'm ready for it and I want to be challenged. So before you've done any instruction, giving kids a chance to do that helps them zoom in on the what? Target. They know where they're going. Then you teach the lesson, they practice a little bit, and now they have evidence, right? They've done it. They've practiced, you give them feedback, you say, hey, guess what? Now where are you? Did you move? Are you stronger now than when we started? Then you can do a couple lessons, and then give a quiz. This is a non-graded quiz because it's a formative assessment. Let's check up. Let's go to the doctor a minute. Let's see how you're doing. Finish, finish, finish. Another quiz. And then what do? Summative. And who's doing the work? Still. They are. So this is one example of what it could look like in a chapter of math. Okay, anybody have a question or comment about that? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll go to think, pair, share before I ask you to report out. So, quick conversation at your table about this idea. Go ahead. 1. Now let me ask that question again. And by the way, I think this is a good strategy. Anytime you ask kids to report out to the whole group, give them a chance to talk to somebody first because it's safe. I saw almost everybody talking a minute ago when I was just looking around. And now I'm hoping at least one person will share out. What did you hear? What did you talk about at your table about this idea?
We talked about our grade levels again, K1, where we probably have to go to the happy face, sad face, and the neutral face.
Absolutely. Yes. The younger kids are going to use face like a happy face, kind of neutral face, or maybe a, I'm scared about this face. Absolutely. Yeah, great idea. Anyone else? You want this template? I'll send it to you. Sure. If you want, oh gosh, how can I do this? Yeah, you know what? I do have a list of who's here, so I can send this out. Nick.
Bruce, we had a good question. We're curious, when you give them this template, do you then have those exact same goals per unit, or do you break it down per week? How would you, if you were to display it in your classroom so that visual is there every single day while you're working through that, per se, in math, would you do a whole unit or just a week-long kind of goal setting?
It depends. That's my favorite answer. It depends so much on your kids. This is exactly what I do with an older kid, 4th, 5th grade. Absolutely. Give them this whole thing. Give them all a copy of this. And say, hold this in your math folder. Littler ones, do they have the organization skills to do that? I don't know. Maybe. Give them a chance. You know what? That'd be something you have to teach them, right? Yeah. Give them a chance. They have to be taught organization too. Does that answer your question? Kind of. All right. Okay. Second one. Where am I going? Using examples of strong and weak work. Here's the research behind this. We've been doing a lot of this, but giving students time to talk about what would count as what? Quality work. What comes to mind right away? If you're thinking, quality work, what comes to your teacher mind? Anyone, just shout it out.
Beginning level.
Yeah. What are my levels? Beginning, developing, secure. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me show you a few examples. I did a walk around the hall, walk here at Kennedy, and I took some pictures of some work. And I redacted names. But let's take a look. Oh, before we do that, would you take a quick peek at the Marshall rubric again? Where does this kind of come in? Using examples of strong and weak work for kids to look at. Criteria says, posts criteria for proficiency, including rubrics and exemplars of student work. Ding, ding, ding. That's the jackpot on this one. Yeah, there's a few others too. So let me show you a couple. Okay, some of you might recognize this work. Again, I just walked in the hall. So as a teacher, you throw this up at the beginning and say, you know what, this is what my students did last year. Here's what we're going to do, everybody. We're going to take and do some data work. And this is a math unit. Our goal is A, B, C, and D. And list them. Tell them what it is. You can talk about pie charts. You can talk about bar graphs. You can talk about data in a table. You can talk about a writing. There's a lot of stuff going on right here. And this is what you're showing ahead of time. Saying, you know what, here's an example. I want you to talk, is this strong or weak? Now, it could depend. If this was a senior high deal, it'd be a lot different than a kindergartner looking at this, right? So again, there's my answer, it depends. Here's another one. This is about frogs. Again, what grade level makes a difference. But there's a lot of writing going on here, a lot of spelling. This is actually first grade, by the way. There's some art here. You could talk about shape. You could talk about nature. There's a lot of things in here that you could connect and have kids think about. What's my criteria? What is the rubric we're looking for? What would you give this? If this was your final, everybody, what would you here's based on this information, and I give them the criteria, what do you think? Is this exemplar work? Is this top? So that's getting kids to look at it. They could do a smiley face deal. And there's one more. Here's a music one. Look at all this that's going on. Okay, research. A lot of things going on here. Again, showing this at the front end and having kids dissect it a little bit and saying, where's this in terms of quality? Does it have information about his birth? Does it say why he's famous? Does he say what instruments he was proficient at? I don't know. I'm making all that up. I don't know what they were. I don't know what the criteria was. But can you see where if kids are looking at this first, they have an idea of what the target looks like? They're the archer. First question was, where am I going? And we're done with that one now. Helping kids understand, where are they going? Question number 2, here's where I'm going. Where am I now? Okay, remember the visual we did? What is this? I want you to think about this picture. What's going on? Think, share. Think and then share. What is this picture about? If you're looking at your yellow packet, there's a big hint. What is it about? Anyone? Feedback. Exactly. You got a couple people here taking some time to give feedback to each other. Now, it says descriptive feedback, so it needs details again. Okay, find this in the Kim Marshall rubric. Do a quick check on your blue packet again. Where does feedback come in? D, on the spot. Frequently checks for understanding and gives students helpful info if confused. Right. What else? Recognition. Regularly post students' work to make visible their progress with respect to standards. Yep. How about under A, assessments 2? Plans on the spot and unit assessments to measure student learning. Again, that's the big idea, but then it's that feedback you have to have. It starts with a plan, though. You got to plan it. Here's some examples, and these are again on your in your packet, so you can hold on to them. You don't have to worry about writing these down or anything. I know that even as I sit with teachers from time to time, they'll say, "Was that a good lesson? Can you tell me, was that a good lesson?" And I try to go, "Oh, I don't want to tell you that. I want to provide you the feedback that is neutral. It avoids praise or blame, and it allows you to think about it and be a reflective practitioner." At least that's part of what I think about, and I try to follow that. Sometimes I slip. mostly on the, if I slip, I'm going to slip on the positive side. I won't tell you, that stunk. You know, but I don't want to make it seem like if I don't say that to people either, but it's really value neutral. It's feedback that helps people think. As adults, we need that too. Focuses on the intended learning, which comes back to the target, right? Boy, that's going to be one thing that comes out of this is that target idea. Shows where the work is right or wrong, but that doesn't stop there. Why? Why was it right? Why was it wrong? Talks about strengths and areas for improvement in terms of the intended learning. Now, here's another thing you have to be careful about. Again, this is where you have to know your kids. Okay, how much can they handle? You know, you could say, oh boy, you know what, they're not getting this 2-digit addition yet. And I know why, it's because they can't count to 5. You know, that's a big problem. So, you know, where's your instruction? Well, you're going to have to tweak it for that one versus, oh, look at this, somebody added 25 and 36, and they forgot to carry that 1, or something like that. So it's different for different kids. The feedback should model the kind of thinking that we want our students to be in. And ultimately, it helps them improve. Last one, make sure they don't shut down because of what you say. Okay, where am I now, number 2? It's the second part of that. This looks like a juggler. What does this have to do with anything? Well, you want the kids to be looking at this. You want them to self-assess and to set some goals. Okay, commercial rubric. Yes, that's a good one. D, self-assessment. Has students set goals, self-assess, and know where they stand academically at all times. Yep. This is probably one of the most powerful practices you can do. Visible Learning by John Hattie. Some of you have heard about it, maybe some of you haven't. He did a meta-analysis of meta-analyses. Basically, he looked at so many things and it says, teaching's holy grail. In other words, what are the most powerful practices we can use? There's 138 of them in here, and the one that's ranked number 1, right there. Put a star by this. You need to dig into this some more if you don't know much about it. Again, this is Formative Assessment 101, so we won't get too deep. But that's huge. Teaching students to self-assess and then setting goals. You can get up to 3 years growth if this is done effectively. It's amazing. Now that I Can document I showed you a little while ago is one way that you can get kids involved in that process. Reading fluency. You know, we all give that fluency check. This didn't come out real well on the slide, but I think it'll show up better, maybe, on yours, maybe not. I'm going to cruise right through this one. Okay, we're getting close to the end here, so I'm going to speed this up. Think of these examples of formative assessments that are on the next page. What will make them successful? How could students be involved in this? And then I want you to think like you're a PLC right now. Each of you are sitting in a PLC. All right? So think about these. What will make this successful? How can students be involved? Can you just do a real quick conversation at your table? We're going to probably, we won't have time to do them all, but take a minute or so and just talk about one of these or maybe 2. Ready? 1 minute, go. Okay, that was real quick. This is the second part of my content objectives, by the way, is beginning to think about how can you use formative assessments to help kids. You can have pre-assessments, hands-on assessments, exit slips, rubrics that are generated, giving quality homework assignments that are really focused on the objectives, and then some post-assessments that are really strong as well. Last question is, how do I close the gap? And here's where you come in. By designing lessons that are focused on one aspect of quality at a time. So you have that laser purpose too. Once you're into this and you do a lot of that pre-work, The kids are doing the most of the work in the lesson. Your work comes before the class starts. And now you're a facilitator and you're making sure, walking around, making sure everybody's doing their job. Teach students, focused revision. You know what? Let's fix this. Here's what I want you to focus on. This can even happen as they're walking the hallways and you want them to improve. You know what? Here's what didn't work today. When you were walking, here's what I saw. Da 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 da. Here's how we can fix it. Da 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 da. It's that focused piece. And then engage students in self-reflection. Again, this comes back to that Kim Marshall rubric. Distinguishing features of classrooms that use this well, students will be thinking more often. And they're thinking, they're not just trying to remember. Students will believe that by working hard, they will get smarter. And they understand what they're working toward. And they always know where they are. Here's where I am. Here's where I'm going. I know my teacher's going to help me close the gap, but I have to work hard to do that. Okay, I wanted to show this real quick. Okay, so over here in the left-hand column, I'm going to use the mouse. This was the pre-assessment, and they got, when they did this team, there was 140 kids or so. There were 2 that were not in the red zone. That was dated 2/10. They did, this team did a formative assessment and ended here, and then finally the summative. And I'm going to just put the mic down and I'll show you what happened as I scroll. See all the kids? Look at this red column right here. Like the whole grade level was in red. There's a couple kids that were yellow. There's a green. Nobody in the blue. After the formative assessment, this is all done through a Google Doc, by the way. Okay, notice again, a lot of reds, but now look at all the yellows, and all the greens, all the blues. How do you think this team was starting to feel? Like, hey, what we're doing is making a difference. And guess what? They hadn't given the summative yet. So now they knew who to target. Those kids in the red and the yellow. And how did it end? Those are the only kids left in the red out of 150-ish. Okay. What's the power? What were they doing? They knew their target. They were aiming at it. They were gathering data. They were using the data. They were helping the kids who needed it. And they ended up with 12 kids who still didn't have it. Were they satisfied? Probably not. And they started to look over here and say, oh wow, look, this is opening some new windows. Some of our special ed kids and EL kids are the ones we missed. So what does that do? Now they're having a whole new conversation that they might have not had before. What can we do to help our EL kids? Because they're the ones not getting it. So the answer's not there yet, but at least the questions are being asked. Okay. Time for the post exit slip. I went about 3 minutes over. Can you flip that yellow or the white sheet over to the, flip it over to the back. Answer as many as you can, and then in the top right corner of the front, where are you now? There's where you were at the beginning. You were 1, 2, 3, or 4. Where are you now? And then hopefully I helped you. You did the work though, but I helped you close the gap.